My name is Aleksander Wierzejski and welcome to Poland Daily. 40 cardinals, along with 379 bishops and priests, joined the Pope for midnight mass. Pope Francis said the birth of the baby Jesus should be an incentive to introduce a new model of life.
The little body of the Bethlehem baby introduces a new model of life, to not gain and devour, but to share and give. The Holy Father reminded us that the name Bethlehem means the house of bread. Bethlehem, the name of this town, means house of bread. In this house the Lord meets humankind. He knows we need food to live, but he also knows the food of the world will not satisfy our hearts. In his homily, Pope Francis also encouraged believers to reflect. Called on this night to go to Bethlehem, the house of bread, let us ask ourselves, what is the food of our lives that we cannot live without? Is it the Lord or something else? Then, entering the stable and surrounded by poverty, seeing a new aroma of life and simplicity in Jesus, let's ask ourselves, do we really need so many things, so many complicated prescriptions for life? Can I go without the many unnecessary additions and choose to lead a simpler life? Preaching at the midnight mass at Wawel Cathedral, the Archbishop Marek Jędraszewski pointed out the empty seats at Christmas Eve vigil supper tables. We've come to the midnight mass with the Christmas Eve vigil spent with our loved ones just a few hours ago, still in our memory. The breaking of the Christmas wafer and heartfelt looks at one another, full of mutual warmth, the singing of Christmas carols together with family, and for many of us a nostalgic look at the empty space at the table. Meanwhile, the chairman of the Polish Episcopate Conference, Archbishop of Poznań Stanisław Gądecki, emphasized that Christmas isn't a fairy tale for children, but God's response to humanity's search for real peace. Rejoice, even if now you must face some sadness due to your situations. Does the Gospel with the words, "In him was life, and the life was the light of the people, and the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it," not give us hope? So let the light of Christ, which comes to enlighten everyone, shine in our hearts and comfort those who live in the darkness of misery, injustice and war. In Bethlehem, pilgrims who come to take part in the celebration of Christmas gathered around the Basilica of the Nativity of Christ.
I feel absolutely wonderful. We travelled over here the other day and it is absolutely fantastic to be here. The atmosphere is wonderful. We went inside the Church of the Nativity and we touched the place where Jesus was supposed to be born. I'm here with my 3 children and it's just wonderful. And happy Christmas to everybody. Fantastic atmosphere. Delighted to be here.
This is my first time here. We were in Jerusalem and now we're here for Christmas. We've just been into the Church of the Nativity to see where Jesus was born as well. It's unbelievable. You just can't sort of process it. So being away from home doesn't matter because you're with your family. So it's amazing. It really, really is.
Pope Francis tells us that Christmas is the event that is renewed in every family, in every parish and in every community that accepts the love of God incarnate. Let it therefore be a celebration for all of us.
Christmas is one of the most important holidays celebrated by Catholics around the world. The warmth of the common Christmas Eve and the warmth of the Christmas carols melt as well the outer cold of Siberia. The coming of the Savior is celebrated there by people with Polish roots.
Priest Marek Jaśkowski has been a missionary in Siberia for 10 years. His parish has 2.5 million inhabitants and occupies a 4 times larger area than the territory of Poland. It is considered the largest parish in the world. In Russia, Christmas is associated with the Orthodox celebration of this event, which falls on January 7th. Catholics constitute a decided minority in these areas. The most important event is the New Year. The closer to the New Year, the atmosphere is more and more festive. Special dishes are prepared, people decorate Christmas trees, and this day is considered a family holiday. This is the remnant of the communist period, when Christmas was being turned into a new year. In the mentality of people, it is still very much present, explains priest Jaśkowski. In Siberia, the winter lasts for over half a year and reaches even minus 62 degrees Celsius. The priest emphasizes that especially in Siberia, Jesus Christ is the one who brings warmth to human hearts.
Polish Christian charity Caritas Polska is raising funds to help the victims of last week's tsunami in Indonesia. organization plans to allocate 100,000 Polish zlotys, that's about $26,000, in aid to those affected by the disaster in the islands. The charity was appealing to Poles to show solidarity by making donations, including through text messages. Meanwhile, the death toll from the tsunami rose to 429, with almost 1,500 others injured and 154 missing as rescuers combed through rubble for survivors. A cloudless sky might take on lower tones. Strawberries might be interpreted as higher ones, while the snow can sound like the sound of the sea. That's how the colorophone works, a device which translates color into the sound. The technology is going to internet with special glasses which are to be worn by the blind. Device inventor is Polish scientist Dominik Osiński, who works at the Norwegian University of Science and Technology.
Many scientists try to figure out how to connect the world of color with the world of sound. Dominik Osiński, currently working at the Norwegian University of Science and Technology, had a breakthrough idea. As he said, the team of scientists created an acoustic color space coordinating colors with their corresponding sounds with regards to their wavelengths. Using that logic, the color red would be high-pitched, green would be moderate, while blue would be a low-pitched sound. Interestingly, the color white would be similar to the sound of the sea. Thanks to this technology, you can mix and match various sounds to create an entire color palette. After installing and opening the smartphone app, the user can point the phone camera to a particular item and a sound corresponding to the item's color will be emitted. However, Colorphone is much more than that. The team involved with the project is currently working on further prototypes of special camera glasses, an ultraviolet distance sensor and built-in headphones. The new model would help the blind to understand not just the color of the item he or she is looking at, but also the distance between them. Placing the system on top of a person's head would engage the person's sense of balance, but also a phone would not be needed to scan the environment. There is still room for improvement. The app is currently in alpha stage, available only to its developers. Nevertheless, it is set to be unveiled to a wider group of blind people. The production of the glasses is scheduled to be ready in 2 to 3 years.
That's it for the news. The following transmission is weather news and the business. Please stay with us.
We have a relatively warm night ahead of us in Poland, especially in the northwest, with 6 degrees Celsius in Szczecin and Koszalin by the sea, and 4 degrees in Zielona Góra, Poznań and Gdańsk. The rest of the country will experience a bit colder temperatures, with 2 degrees in the capital city Warsaw, and only Bydgoszcz in the east hitting the 0 degrees mark. Snow will be seen across almost the entire country except for Poznań, Koszalin and Szczecin. Storm can come over the last one near the border with Germany. The air pressure will reach a low of 1,007 hectopascals. Wednesday won't be too cold for Poland, with the lowest temperature of 2 degrees Celsius in the east in Białystok and the highest of 6 in Szczecin and Koszalin in the west. The northwestern side of the country will also experience a bit of sun, but for the most part the weather will be cloudy. The temperatures in the cities of Warsaw, Łódź, Wrocław and Zielona Góra will circle around 4 degrees, but it will drop to 3 degrees in the south of Poland, with Katowice, Kraków and Rzeszów experiencing snow mixed with rain. There will also be a considerable hike in air pressure in comparison to the night, with 1,024 hectopascals instead of 1,007. It's quite a warm Christmas for Europe this year, with no minus temperatures across the continent. Portugal, Spain and Italy will be the best places to avoid winter, with 16 degrees Celsius in Lisbon and 12 in Madrid and Rome. Although it will be mainly cloudy, there will be some sun in the southern parts of Central Europe. The more to the east, the lower the temperatures, with 0 degrees in Ukraine, Belarus and Russia. The air pressure will be around the standard level of 1,019 hectopascals.
My name is Aleksander Wierzejski. Welcome to Poland Daily Business News. Poland is among the countries with the most efficient healthcare in the world, reports Bloomberg. Even though the average life expectancy in Poland is about 77.5 years, and that's of the US at 79. Poles spend almost 11 times less absolute cost on healthcare and almost 3 times less in relative costs. Bloomberg put Poland on the 23rd place in their analysis, beating seemingly more advanced countries like Germany, the United Kingdom, Austria or the United States. The efficient healthcare in Poland may be the result of good investment in medical equipment and proper use of EU funds, as well as the well-trained medical staff. One of the most extravagant Christmas decoration this year, one could easily say this about a Christmas tree in Yekaterinburg, Russia, made entirely with paper bills worth $1,200,000 and €1,100,000 in total. Created by the Neva Bank, the unusual Christmas tree sits on one of the secured rooms in the bank. There is no concern for its safety, said Konstantin Levushkin, the deputy CEO of the Neva. Levushkin stressed that the idea for such an expensive decoration came from the bank's workers and was approved by the management. Furthermore, a picture of the money tree will be sent for a local photography competition. The tree stood 2 days, but after that time it was deconstructed and the paper bills returned to the safes. So Merry Christmas to everyone, and please take care for your money and don't let them burn on the Christmas tree. That's about the Poland Daily Business, and following is our business interview. Poland Daily Business. Welcome to our show tonight. Our guest is Mr. Nicholas Richardson of British-Polish Chamber of Commerce. Sir, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Alexander.
Well, the Poland now is a different country than quarter of century ago. Many people say that this is amazing change. You yourself been in Poland for prolonged period of time. Can you confirm that this is something different?
Of course. The city has changed immensely. You only have to look at the physical landscape. Many of the buildings we take for granted now, well, when I first arrived at the end of 1994, still essentially undeveloped sites. You look at the whole of those new offices on Jana Pawła, for example, the atrium developments. That was just a building site when I arrived. Buildings we now take for granted, like the Warsaw Financial Centre, the Warsaw Spire is obviously new. The other tall buildings just weren't there. The physical landscape has changed. It's now a much more modern, vibrant city. And even simple things like going to restaurants, or the thing I really remember, because it was machines where you can put your card in the wall and get money out. When I first arrived here in '94, there was one. It was outside the American Express office, just off Krakowskie Przedmieście. And if you actually went into a bank to actually get money out on your credit card, it was a fantastically long process. You queued up. Your card was taken, and several of bank staff would look at your card and fill out lots of forms, and eventually, half an hour later, you'd be given your money. It was as if it was just something unknown. And now, of course, I think Poland probably leads the UK in terms of contactless payment. Everybody has cards. Everything is much simpler. So yes, the physical landscape, the ability to do things is much improved.
So the 25 years ago, the Warsaw and Poland subsequently was different country than other Europeans, meaning Germany, the leading ones. It's Amsterdam, Paris, Berlin. We stand away.
Yes, it was very. You were very conscious that you were in a capital city that was different. There was less here. It had obviously been held back under the previous regime, and the infrastructure wasn't there. The cars on the street, there were far fewer cars. Yeah. There weren't the traffic jams you have now, but the cars themselves were older. Those little Maluks, for example, which you seldom see now. And now you see the newest cars. You see Aston Martin, Rolls-Royce. Right. The signs of progress, the signs of increase.
Most people ride on trams anyway.
Yes, but the trams are new as well. They have fantastic air conditioning in the summer now. And those very old trams have gone. So there are some fantastic new trams. The new trains, when you go to
this changes. There was a representation of something, that the business ethics, the way you do the contracts, the way you talk to people is also changed over this 25 years?
Yes, it has. I think there's far more familiarity now with the way that things were done elsewhere. So you have, people may not like this, but you have longer contracts. The common law type of contract is, although this is a civil law country, is much more prominent. You look at a lot of the real estate industry, for example, the long leases under Polish law, you'd have had a much shorter lease. Now you have a modern lease, which sort of keeps the financial folk happy. So this sort of, if I might call it for want of a better word, the sort of Western business culture is now very much part of Poland, and I think largely accepted in Poland.
Well, some people say that this progress is mainly due to the European Union accession of Poland. Well, first of all, we have our markets, European markets open for our industry, and second of all, we have this direct payments from the taxpayers of Western Europe that build infrastructure here. But would you agree with this sentence, or?
Yes, I think it's rather more subtle than that. I think Poland has benefited from being in the European Union, not so much, although it has been a reasonable benefit, not so much because European Union funds have been made available to Poland, but because it establishes Poland as part of the Western European family, and therefore people feel that this is a safe place in which to invest, that it's a reasonably predictable legal environment, a reasonably predictable political environment, and so therefore that itself has encouraged investment, which of course has meant that there's Poland, for example, in manufacturing terms, has become very much integrated into the German manufacturing industry, which is fantastic for Poland. But so the European Union has helped create those conditions which give people confidence, rather than it being simply a matter of European Union funds, which have been very useful for building motorways and putting in new trains and trams.
What about hard work? Well, it turns out that people come here and say, well, Poles are hard-working.
I think people are hard-working. I think they've realised now that it was not your duty to go to work and sabotage your employer, because these days your employer will pay you a salary and you will actually derive some benefit. Whereas I can imagine in the old days when we pretended to work because people pretended to pay us, I mean, you actually didn't get very much done. But I think now Poles can see that the fruits of their labour are worth having. And so there is a great work ethic. And of course, those Poles who've gone to abroad, and I'm obviously more familiar with those who've gone to the United Kingdom, work very hard as well. So yes, I think Poles have felt now, yes, we can work. It is worth working. It is worth trying. The young people are very enthusiastic. They're always going off and getting new qualifications. I think they work hard in terms of hours. They generally work hard.
You're painting rosy pictures, so now tell something that contradicts that.
Well, I'm not here to sort of paint a rosy picture or not rosy, but that's the reality as I see it. I can understand that some people feel they may, and particularly I've always lived and worked in Poland, in Warsaw, which is a big city, and I can understand that for those Poles who live outside the big cities, the picture may not be so rosy. If you were dependent on a factory which is closed down, then you may take a different view. And of course, then some politicians may seek to take advantage of that. So there may be clouds on the horizon. The clouds may be demographic clouds. For example, Poland, a lot of Poles have gone to work in other parts of the European Union, which means there's a labour shortage, ironically, in Poland. So Poles are then actually asking immigrants from the Ukraine and other places to come, which is part of the way that the world works.
Do we have a chance to manage this labour immigration better than did the Germans or French or than you in UK?
They do have a chance because the government seems to be very keen to try to manage it. But the reality is, I'm not sure. On the one hand, publicly they say, well, we have no immigration. But the reality is, I think it was last year, of all the European countries issuing residence permits to non-European citizens, Poland issued more than anybody else. So so the government is saying, on the one hand, it's saying one thing, and on the other hand, it's actually being fairly pragmatic and trying to respond to the labour shortage. Then you also go beyond the labour shortage to education. You have to say, okay, are the Polish universities producing the people an advanced economy needs? And I think that's a weak point as well. The Polish universities, I think the basic education in Poland is very good, but I think the universities lack the international quality that really Poland needs to develop new technologies to produce a really well-equipped workforce for the challenges, whatever the challenges may be, of the remainder of the 21st century.
For all those SpaceXs and Amazons that should emerge from Poland finally and take over.
Yes, where is Poland's Silicon Valley? No doubt your viewers will write in and tell me exactly where it is. But the point is, clusters develop. Silicon Valley in America.
People
obviously
are motivating each other, and they go
and the
climb higher.
For example, there's Silicon Fen outside Cambridge, where a lot of Cambridge universities has done a lot of research, and a lot of industries have been drawn to that cluster. And the question is, can Poland develop a similar cluster? That's what we need for the future.
That's a very good question. And the person who asked that question is Nicholas Richardson of British-Polish Chamber of Commerce. Sir, thank you for coming to our show.
Thank you, Alexander.
And
Always a pleasure.
That was it for tonight's Poland Daily Business.
We have a relatively warm night ahead of us in Poland, especially in the northwest, with 6 degrees Celsius in Szczecin and Koszalin by the sea, and 4 degrees in Zielona Góra, Poznań and Gdańsk. The rest of the country will experience a bit colder temperatures, with 2 degrees in the capital city Warsaw, and only Bydgoszcz in the east hitting the 0 degrees mark. Snow will be seen across almost the entire country except for Poznań, Koszalin and Szczecin. Storm can come over the last one near the border with Germany. The air pressure will reach a low of 1,007 hectopascals. Wednesday won't be too cold for Poland, with the lowest temperature of 2 degrees Celsius in the east in Białystok and the highest of 6 in Szczecin and Koszalin in the west. The northwestern side of the country will also experience a bit of sun, but for the most part the weather will be cloudy. The temperatures in the cities of Warsaw, Łódź, Wrocław and Zielona Góra will circle around 4 degrees, but it will drop to 3 degrees in the south of Poland, with Katowice, Kraków and Rzeszów experiencing snow mixed with rain. There will also be a considerable hike in air pressure in comparison to the night, with 1,024 hectopascals instead of 1,007. It's quite a warm Christmas for Europe this year, with no minus temperatures across the continent. Portugal, Spain and Italy will be the best places to avoid winter, with 16 degrees Celsius in Lisbon and 12 in Madrid and Rome. Although it will be mainly cloudy, there will be some sun in the southern parts of Central Europe. The more to the east, the lower the temperatures, with 0 degrees in Ukraine, Belarus and Russia. The air pressure will be around the standard level of 1,019 hectopascals.
Welcome to Poland Daily Culture. As it's the festive season, we're going to be seeing exactly how Poland celebrates Christmas. So we'll be looking at the customs and traditions that make this such an eagerly anticipated time of year.
Christmas is one of the 2 major feasts during the liturgical year, and but as now we are still in Advent time, as you can see in the church, there are no decorations yet. If we go to shopping center, there are other decorations. We are in the Advent time. What is interesting, we live looking for the future, like every family looking for a new job for children, for a new house. We also look in the faith, looking for the future, and so the final future, the final meeting with Jesus. This is one of the part of the Advent time, and the second part of Advent is preparation for the Christmas feast every year. So we are still in this time of waiting. What's interesting, the Advent time is longer than Christmas, so we live more waiting for something. Like all life, we wait for something, preparing for something. The same in the liturgical year, we wait for coming of Jesus at the end of the time, and now also for the Christmas. Well, Christmas is the one of 2 major feasts. The big mystery of how it's possible that God is becoming one of us, becoming man. And it happened in the historical realm 2,000 years ago. Jesus Christ was incarnated, took the body from Virgin Mary, and became one of us. So God is not somewhere far away, but it's one of us. And so that's we celebrate, that God is close to us. And he took upon himself all what our human reality requires, or except sin. So he was like one of us. And this we celebrate, that God is not so far, he's close to us. Of course, this is just beginning of the new story, because all his life, then hidden, and then time of teaching, and then mystery of resurrection, suffering and resurrection. So that's the second part. But now we are living, preparing for Christmas. Well, every country has its own traditions, so it's hard to say that Poland and the rest of the world or the rest of Europe, because every country has slightly different accents, some ideas, songs. So I would say traditionally for us it's 2 days of celebration. Usually the first part is in the church. Most often the people go for the Mass at midnight. Well, it doesn't have to be midnight, could be the evening sometime, but at night. And then there's kind of a family celebration. Some people come, for instance, for the first day being in the closest family. The second day they visit often the extended family, going somewhere to parents or children. And of course, there are some special menu for this time, but I would say this is kind of additional, traditional. The heart is trying to live this mystery. God is with us, and also as a human being. So we try to live this reality of God among us in the human dimension, especially the closest friends and family. This is quite unique, I think, for Poland, not largely known. The meaning is that's the bread. Of course, it is very similar to Eucharistic bread, which is bread becoming body of Christ. Well, this is bread, but somehow close. And this significant, this wafer we share it, we broke it and share it with closest friends. During this special meal at the evening with the closest family, but very often some people want to repeat this either before Christmas or after Christmas, even in somewhere in the where they work, with other friends, with other occasions. So it is somehow kind of a specific that we want to be like. We want to personify God who is among us in the same, in the way as possible among humans. So that's the. It's hard to say. I think the symbol is so powerful that doesn't require long explanation.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah.
And just remember, when I was far away from Poland, we didn't have this, so I just sent, the hosts, which are like for a mass, but well, they're not consecrated; they were bread. But then it was problematic because they didn't know if it was consecrated or not. So it is a very close connection. It's like consecrated, so that means body of Christ, but it looks like the same. But we know it's just bread, but it just have this special meaning that we share humanly, but like inviting God among us. We have many carols, Christmas carols, And well, it is a long story because in the past there was many people sang those carols at homes, going somewhere. So it was not only for the liturgy, not only for the church, but mainly they were somehow Christian. I mean, in the meaning, the Christian meaning. So not so much, some stories about this. They were also like that. We call it pastorałki. There are some stories around, a little bit. Sometimes stories with animals or trees or something like that. But there were many because it was just a special time. Even we used to sing this for the longer time, up to a longer period of time, up to the 2nd of February. So it was liturgically the time of Christmas finishes in the feast of baptism of Jesus, which is Sunday after Epiphany. But so it's about between 8, 10, 12 January, depends the year. But we used to sing up to the 2nd of February. So it was longer time, and people enjoyed it, just visiting friends, family, and singing song for much longer time, over a month. So, and from this tradition started to create many new songs, carols. And of course, only some of them could be accepted for the liturgy. Not everyone can be used for in the church. But I think from this it started this tradition of having so many songs about Christmas. I think in general it is up to 2nd of February because of the old tradition. Well, it is also the story because, as you know, this year we celebrate the 100th anniversary of the regaining independence. Many of the songs were created before. At that time, it was impossible to speak loudly in Polish. It was, part of 3 countries. So the singing the Polish carols was kind of a sign of keeping together family, but also showing faith, but also showing this kind of spirit of belonging to Polish culture, to Polish tradition. So that was, well, it had a few meanings. So that's why I think there are so many. Now there are less of them are so frequently used, and now we sing less than in the past. But I think there were many reasons for that, why it developed like that.
So, wherever you're celebrating Christmas this year, from Poland Daily Culture, we wish you a very Merry Christmas and Wesołych Świąt.
The Holocaust in German-occupied Poland was the last and most lethal phase of Nazi Germany's rule, marked by the construction of death camps on German-occupied Polish soil. The fear for life is just a fact of life for Poles during the time. Our guest, Dr. Mirosław Czado, recounts the life of an average Polish person under the regime and more insights pertaining to the era. So it is no secret that during the Second World War, Jews aren't treated exactly the best, and also the Jewish population and the Catholic population are slightly different from one another. How do they integrate, and how are they acting with one another during the time of the occupation?
Prior to World War II, Poland was a multinational country. Poles would make up 69% of the population, while the remaining 31% consisted of various minorities. The population of Poland before the war was in the realms of 35 million, and roughly 10% of that were Jews. This was the biggest Jewish diaspora in Europe. Warsaw, which at the time had a population of 1.3 million inhabitants, was home to 350,000 Jews. That is why the German concentration camps were set up in Poland. It was more economically viable to transport 350,000 Jews from France to Poland than move 3.5 million the other way. That's the reason German death camps and concentration camps were built in Poland. In many cities such as Piotrków Trybunalski or Warsaw, ghettos were established in order to contain the Jewish population. In most cases, designated district would be surrounded by barbed wire. In Warsaw, however, there was a 3.5 meters high brick wall enclosing the ghetto. It was established in December 1939 with the aim of encouraging Jews to move in. Germans were trying to send a message that a new Jewish district was being built. However, that myth was quickly destroyed. Food rations were sometimes as low as 180 calories per person per day, which is the equivalent of one apple. 450,000 Jews were trapped within 307 hectares of land. The difference between the figure of 450,000 Jews living in the ghetto and 350,000 living in Warsaw before the war stemmed from the fact that 100,000 were brought in from towns around Warsaw, as not every city had their own ghetto. The mass of 450,000 people was made to live in dire conditions with as many as 12 people sharing one room. Imagine living in a 3-bedroom apartment alongside over 30 other people. Hygiene could not be maintained, people would die in the streets. By 1942, 100,000 Jews died in the streets of Warsaw. The hunger was unimaginable and diseases ran rampant. On the other side, the Polish society was heavily engaged in helping Jews. Poland was the only country in the world where a death penalty would be given for the entire family if one of the members was found to be helping Jews.
Wprowadzono karę śmierci za pomoc Żydom. Niemcy, wprowadzając karę śmierci dla całej rodziny za pomoc Żydom, robią to z pełną premedytacją.
The Germans did this on purpose. They knew that a multicultural Polish society would want to rescue the Jewish. It was also not a coincidence that the biggest Jewish diaspora was located in Poland, as they would choose Poland to settle in because of high religious and social tolerance.
W wyniku ogromnej tolerancji religijnej i społecznej Żydzi chętnie się osiedlali.
Nazi Germany and its reprehensible actions during the Second World War famously left a long-lasting scar in Europe till this day, as longtime residents of one of the major cities irreversibly damaged during the times of the Holocaust. Our guest, Viktor Skowronski, recalls for us what the stain in history meant for a citizen of Warsaw.
In 1940, the Germans were already setting up the ghetto on Dzielna Street, where I was born. Therefore, we were made to relocate to the Prague district.
Getto. Zmuszeni byliśmy przeprowadzić się na Pragę.
We traded homes with a very poor, large Jewish family, and up to this day, I live alone in that building.
I do tej pory niestety jako samotna osoba tam w tej kamienicy mieszkam.
Podstawowym jakby takim wyznacznikiem
The main factor which decided if you were considered a Jew was your faith, Judaism.
Czyli judaizm, czy wiara katolicka.
In many cases, people were made to say their prayers in order to establish their religion.
To nakazanie odmówienia pacierza.
The Catholic Church would falsify certificates of baptism, which would, at least on paper, make Jewish children safer.
Ale również uczą żydowskie dzieci modlitw katolickich. Dzięki temu te mogły
Furthermore, Catholic priests also taught them to say Polish prayers so that they would blend into the society and function as a part of it.
Funkcjonować. Również sierocińce kościelne chętnie przyjmują dzieci żydowskie.
Additionally, church orphanages would care for Jewish children and teach them about the Catholic faith.
W ten sposób społeczeństwo żydowskie jest ratowane przez polskie.
These were some of the ways the priests helped young Jews escape death.
Pragnę powiedzieć, że był taki duchowny katolicki, który zginął w Auschwitz-Birkenau.
There was a friar who died in the Auschwitz-Birkenau death camp named Maximilian Maria Kolbe. About 1,500 Jewish children were kept in the Napokalanów monastery where Kolbe worked.
W klasztor w Niepokalanowie przechowywano około 1500 dzieci żydowskich.
This was the direct cause of his detainment and martyr's death in the camp.
W Auschwitz-Birkenau. Wiele zakonnic.
Nuns would often run orphanages caring for Jewish children. Many Poles protected Jews in their own homes, which can be seen now as Poland received the most medals given by the Yad Vashem Institute to over 6,000 Poles.
Medali przyznawanych przez Instytut Yad Vashem w Jerozolimie ponad 6,000 Polacy. Nie ma społeczeństwa.
No other nation helped Jews as much as the Poles. And it is important to underline that the penalty for protecting or even the intention of helping Jews in Poland was death to one's entire family, even for as little as throwing some bread over the ghetto walls.
Była to kara również za zamiar pomocy.
Meanwhile, in France the penalty for such actions was a fine equivalent to the price of one dinner.
Również groziła taka kara we Francji, Belgii.
This shows how much the Germans anticipated Poles to help Jews out.
To pokazuje, jak bardzo Niemcy rozumieli, że społeczeństwo polskie będzie chciało pomagać Żydom.
Poland has its fair share of unfriendly occupants and lethal encounters, but none of which comes close to the brutality of the Holocaust. Every branch of the sophisticated German bureaucracy was involved in the killing process, from the interior and finance ministries to German firms and state-run railroads. Poland eventually healed and recovered throughout the years, leaving scars, however, that were never forgotten. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee. See you next time on Poland Daily History.
This episode, we leave the old town and we head to the center of Warsaw to the restaurant called Coco and Roy. It's at 43 Wilcza in beautiful downtown Warsaw. We're going to talk about Christmas traditions in Poland and compare them with the USA and the UK. And we're going to look at what the true meaning of Christmas is, not only in this episode, but in subsequent ones. So stay with Nick and me and Jeff as we discuss Christmas here in Coco and Roy, a restaurant in beautiful downtown Warsaw. So here we are at Coco and Roy, a fine spot in central Warsaw. I call it beautiful downtown Warsaw. We love it here. It's one of my favorite places to come at any time of the day, as long as they'll let me in. We are sitting with some Christmas Eve food, Wigilia, it's called in Polish, in Poland. And we're going to talk about some of that food in a little while, but to start with, I wanted to ask Nick and Jeff some things about Christmas, right? Christmas in your countries. I mean, how is Polish Christmas different from Christmas in the UK?
Nicholas?
Well, I think the main difference is in Poland, obviously, the main family meal, if you like, is on Christmas Eve, Wigilia, when the family gather together. They start eating traditionally when the first star appears in the night sky. Have the meal, and the children will then, well, everybody, but particularly the children will then open their presents. Whereas in England, of course, the main meal is Christmas lunch, which obviously takes place on Christmas Day. And traditionally in England, children open their presents on Christmas Day. They go to bed at night, full of anticipation. Will Santa Claus appear? And if they've been good by some miracle, in the morning they open their presents, which have appeared in their bedroom or under the tree or somewhere. And I think that's the main difference. Obviously, the other difference is the sort of food we eat. In England, the main we will have traditionally it was goose. Now a lot of people have turkey, but once you've tried the difference between goose and turkey, goose has far much more flavour. And then you'll have a thing which is peculiarly British, Christmas pudding, which is a sort of concoction of sultanas, raisins, suet, very nice. And it's served often, in fact, with a flaming brandy sauce, and I've done it myself. You pour the brandy over your pudding and you set fire to it, and you bring it into the room ablaze, and that's actually quite exciting.
Yeah, that's why people wait for that, right?
Now in England, you have to burn all the food to make it good.
It's not.
This is true.
Well, is that
the reason?
No, it's not.
No, it's not like good old Polish.
And the Christmas pudding is not burnt. It's not. The alcohol gives it a great flavour. Yeah. And the fact it's flaming when you bring it into the room is actually quite spectacular.
This is what your parents told you, right?
That's what I mean. Yeah,
the alcohol gives it a perfect flavor.
And none of us have ever set fire to the house, so it's actually worked. But I think that's the main difference. And of course, the Polish evening meal at Wigilia is full of many more different courses than you have in England, full of other symbolism as well. Whereas in England, we just have a sort of jolly good lunch, essentially.
Does it have to be jolly good? Can it
well,
just be good?
Ideally, it should be jolly good. I mean, that's the whole idea. I mean, and the jolliness, of course, in England, we're great believers in the Victorian tradition of invented tradition. And our Christmas, you could argue, was a combination of Charles Dickens, who invented this idea of Christmas, and of course,
A Christmas Carol. Did he invent it?
Yeah, and also it was invented partly, I think, by Prince Albert, who introduced to England the idea of Christmas trees.
Okay.
When he met, so that was a Germanic thing, which we imported from sort of the mid-Victorian era. So we're great believers in the Victorian tradition of invented tradition. And so our Christmas, and the way that the Red Father Christmas was invented by the Coca-Cola Company, for example. So a lot of these although St. Nicholas clearly existed as a historical figure, a lot of our traditions are in fact a lot less traditional than one might think. So the main difference is we sort of, our meal focuses on a different time of the day. And I explain this to my own children by saying, because obviously I spent some Christmases here in Poland and some in England. And of course the boys, when they were much younger, wanted to work out why in Poland Father Christmas appeared on Christmas Eve, but why in England he appeared on Christmas Day. And I explained this as one does by saying it's quite simple. He can't get round everywhere at once. So he came to Poland on Christmas Eve, then on Christmas Day he did countries he couldn't get round in the night before. And this, it seemed to
What about
satisfy.
Australia?
Well, Australia, that's the day before anyway, so that's actually okay.
Does Santa Claus go to Antarctica? I know he's from the North Pole, but North Pole, get it?
Yes.
Okay, it's not an accident. They call it the North Pole.
Not an accident.
Or the South Pole.
Well, I think you'll find Santa Claus's worldwide HQ is in fact in Lapland, which is closer to the North Pole.
It's in Lapland.
Yeah,
okay.
but he does get
most of the time there.
Yeah, he gets to the South Pole eventually. It takes him a bit of time to work his way down, but I think he does get there.
But who does he deliver presents to at the South Pole?
Well, I don't know. I suppose whoever's expecting Christmas presents. There must be some children in the vicinity. Probably.
I don't think there's any children at the South Pole. But we know it as Antarctica.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. But I don't think there's any children there. Just scientists.
Well, but even scientists probably
people
like
looking for gold.
Well, yeah, but even scientists probably like Christmas presents.
Yeah, I suppose.
I don't suppose when you become an adult you stop dreaming, do you?
Yeah.
Or hoping.
I'm still trying to figure out how to talk to my niece about, hey, Santa, you're going to see him the night before, and he's going to be the neighbor, and maybe after a few drinks.
How is Christmas different in the United States? I mean, for your opinion.
Well, I mean,
we can discuss that.
In the same
I had Christmases in the UK too. But, yeah.
And the same as the UK, we definitely celebrate only on Christmas Day. Well, not necessarily true. Christmas in the United States, especially with split families, you have multiple Christmases now. And the season starts about Thanksgiving. And the meal we have on Thanksgiving, we look forward to have the same meal, traditionally turkey, on Christmas Day. But I seem to remember childhood, Christmas Eve, working day, parents would go to work, maybe you're still in school, that might be the last day of school, and you go to Christmas Eve Mass. Similar in Poland, but we did it so we didn't have to go on Christmas Day. Christmas Day was about presents, and in the US, a lot more presents, a lot more commercialized than in Poland. I always remember we had the tradition of having stockings, so you would have presents in the stockings. These tend to be knickknacks, just fun little toys. You'd have presents under the tree.
What kind of stuff do you get? You have stockings in the United States.
Yeah, stockings, and I think this also goes back to
Do they have that
German
in Poland?
days, right?
They have it in England. Stockings on the
Well,
fireplace.
sometimes, yes. I think these days it's more for decoration than actually finding presents in it. I think children's expectations have changed. So
well, unless you're a bad child,
you need a bigger sack than you would normally get in a stocking. I think the Dickensian
that Lego
Christmas
just won't fit in there.
Where you got a sort of orange and a sixpence in your stocking. I think most children today would be rather disappointed if that's all they got at Christmas.
What if you got a lump of coal?
Well, that's what I was saying. That's what the stockings
That's what I used
for.
to get, a lump of coal. And that was when I made straight A's.
Work harder.
I made straight A's, I got a lump of coal. It's no good.
Well, you were from coal country, right?
No, I wasn't. That's West Virginia, not Virginia. But there's no coal mining in Virginia that I know. But you spoke of knickknacks. Now, I would like to know what kind of knickknacks you used to get in your stocking. I know what I used to get. What did you used to get?
Silly putty.
Silly putty. What is silly putty? Nobody knows.
I'm not quite sure.
Here, they don't know.
You can make a ball of it. You can bounce it.
It's just
like
elastic.
This clay elastic.
You know what it is? I remember that as a
in
child.
a plastic.
Well, yeah.
I got.
It's been good since your ages too.
Yeah. Did you get a slinky?
Definitely got slinky.
I got a slinky. A slinky is one of these. It's a wire thing made of wire, and if you put it on the steps, it will walk its way down the steps, right, step by step. Which sounds a little creepy if you think about it, like the Blob or something.
You can watch it for hours, though.
Yeah, but it is.
Until the stairs end.
You could.
I hope you enjoyed the beginning of our conversation at Coco and Roy in beautiful downtown Warsaw. We're going to keep talking, and eventually we're going to try some Vigilia food. So stay with us. Watch each episode for the thrilling conclusion of this Christmas extravaganza in Warsaw, Poland. Merry Christmas, everybody.